Hi guys, I'm Tom, and today we'll be discussing what lickers are. One of the most terrifying, monstrous, and complex creatures in the Resident Evil universe is, without a doubt, the licker. This aberration of the T-virus is the manifestation of biological horror at its fullest. Skinless, with exposed muscles, sharp claws, and a long tongue capable of impaling its prey. But beyond its grotesque appearance, what makes lickers truly terrifying is their stealthy nature and their ability to lurk in the shadows. Blind, yet with hypersensitive hearing, these predators turn the slightest sound into a death sentence. Their terrifying presence and lethality have made them one of the most iconic nightmares in the franchise. That's why in this video, I will explain in detail the history and origins of the licker, and to do so, I'll give you a summary of its history across the different games and movies. Then, I'll talk about its physical appearance, its personality, and its incredible abilities and known weaknesses. Lickers are the result of a spontaneous mutation in individuals previously infected by the T-virus, the pathogen developed by the Umbrella Corporation to create biological weapons. They are not an experiment intentionally designed by the company, but a natural evolution of zombies exposed to the virus over an extended period. When a human being is infected with the T-virus, they undergo several phases of transformation. Phase 1, initial infection. The subject loses their cognitive functions and becomes a zombie, seeking human flesh to feed on. Phase 2, progressive mutation. If the zombie survives long enough and remains exposed to the T-virus, they begin to develop additional characteristics such as increased muscle mass and greater aggression. Phase 3, transformation into licker. At this stage, the zombie mutates drastically, losing all its skin, leaving exposed muscles and internal organs. The skull expands and the bone structure changes, resulting in an enlarged brain with no bone protection. The eyes completely disappear due to degeneration of the ocular tissue. But as compensation, the licker develops an acute sense of hearing, allowing it to hunt its prey with precision. The first sighting of a licker in the series occurs in Resident Evil 2, when Leon S. Kennedy and Claire Redfield explore the Raccoon City police station. As the protagonists progress through the hallways of the station, in an iconic moment of the series, they find the body of an officer brutally torn apart on the ceiling. Shortly after, a licker appears, crawling across the ceiling and letting out a chilling screech before attacking. This moment became one of the most terrifying scenes in Resident Evil 2 and established lickers as one of the most memorable creatures in the franchise. In the 2019 remake, this encounter was redesigned with hyper-realistic graphics and an even more intense atmosphere. The detail of the pulsing brain, the torn skin, and the creature's heavy breathing made the lickers even more terrifying. Lickers exhibit unique behavior compared to other enemies. They are blind but extremely sensitive to sound. If the player moves slowly or stealthily, the licker won't detect them. They are extremely fast and lethal. Their claws can kill quickly if the individual is unprepared. They use their tongue as a ranged weapon, able to strike from a distance with a fast and precise motion. They can scale walls and move on ceilings, making them unpredictable in combat. To face them, characters can use tactics like avoiding combat. If the player moves slowly and quietly, they can avoid confrontation with the lickers. Using high-caliber weapons, lickers have great resilience, so the most effective weapons are shotguns, magnums, or grenades. Exploiting the licker's blindness. Although they are blind, they respond to loud noises. Throwing an object or shooting at a wall can distract them. Throughout the story, players encounter lickers that become progressively more aggressive and resilient. Although there is no super licker variation in this installment, some show increased speed and aggression in later encounters, suggesting they are still mutating. After the disaster in Raccoon City and the spread of the T-virus, lickers began to appear in different settings within the series. Although their origin was tied to the events of Resident Evil 2, evidence of their presence was found in other Umbrella laboratories, suggesting that the corporation began experimenting with them and perfecting their use as biological weapons. In this video, we will cover the appearances of the lickers in games like Resident Evil Outbreak, Resident Evil, The Umbrella Chronicles, and Resident Evil, The Dark Side Chronicles, explaining how their variants evolved and the impact they had on the story. In Resident Evil Outbreak and its sequel Resident Evil Outbreak, File 2, the story of Raccoon City is explored from the perspective of ordinary citizens trying to escape the apocalypse. Unlike the main series games, these titles showcase different parts of the city, including areas that were not seen in Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3. One of the most terrifying scenarios in Resident Evil Outbreak. File number 2 is Desperate Times, where players explore the Raccoon City Hospital. Here, lickers are found in the hallways and rooms, lurking in the darkness, and attacking survivors who make too much noise. This area reinforces the idea that the lickers were not only in the RPD, but were scattered throughout the city. The lickers in Resident Evil Outbreak maintain their lethal characteristics. They are blind but sensitive to sound, forcing players to move with caution. They group together at certain points, making it difficult to evade them if you enter a room without caution. Some may attack in sequence, making fighting multiple lickers at once extremely dangerous. An interesting fact is that in Outbreak, lickers have a mechanic where they can stalk players, remaining still until they detect movement or noise, increasing the tension in the game. In Resident Evil, The Umbrella Chronicles, a first-person shooter that reimagines key events of the series, it is revealed that Umbrella began capturing lickers and using them in experiments in underground laboratories. Here, new versions of the lickers appear, modified and released in Umbrella facilities to test their capacity as biological weapons. They are faster and attack in groups, forcing players to react quickly. These lickers can take more shots before going down, suggesting they have been modified to increase their durability. Many encounters with lickers take place in dimly lit laboratories, making their appearances even more terrifying. One of the most significant scenarios in the game is Death's Door, where Albert Wesker investigates an Umbrella laboratory in Russia. Here, Wesker faces lickers in narrow and dark hallways, reinforcing the idea that these monsters were being used for more advanced experiments before the corporation's downfall. Resident Evil. The Dark Side Chronicles reimagines events from Resident Evil 2 and expands Leon S. Kennedy's story, showing a secret mission in South America where lickers also appear. In this game, Leon and Jack Krauser investigate a biological outbreak in a South American country. Here, they discover that a biological weapons trafficker has been using variants of the T-virus, which led to the appearance of lickers in the region. This is crucial as it indicates that lickers didn't only originate in Raccoon City, but that the T-virus spread to other parts of the world, causing similar mutations elsewhere. In this version, the lickers move even faster and attack more unpredictably. Instead of the dark hallways of Raccoon City, these lickers appear in jungles and ancient ruins, giving them a different vibe. They can take multiple shots before falling, forcing players to use more powerful weapons like the shotgun. The games mentioned in this chapter demonstrate that the lickers were not exclusive to Raccoon City. They also appeared in other parts of the world due to the spread of the T-virus. Umbrella captured lickers to study and modify them, aiming to turn them into more lethal biological weapons. The lickers were used in various experiments, from tests in hospitals to secret military installations. The infection from the T-virus continued to spread after Raccoon City, allowing these creatures to appear in other parts of the world. After Umbrella's fall, several biological weapons, including lickers, began to be trafficked and used by terrorist groups and black markets. Now we will explore their evolution in Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6, where the lickers transitioned from mere wild creatures to tools of war in the world of global bioterrorism. Resident Evil 5 marked a major shift in the franchise, moving away from classic horror and focusing more on action. However, this did not prevent the lickers from having one of their most terrifying appearances in the series. In Resident Evil 5, players face an enhanced version of the liquors called Liquor Beta. These are not the result of natural mutation like in Resident Evil 2, but were artificially altered by the Tricell organization. Tricell, a pharmaceutical company that emerged after Umbrella's fall, acquired data from experiments with the T-virus and decided to improve the liquors, making them more efficient as biological weapons. The Liquor Beta is stronger, faster, and more resilient than its predecessors, with several biological enhancements. Tougher skin. While the original liquors had exposed and vulnerable flesh, the Liquor Beta developed thicker skin, making it more resistant to gunfire. Increased aggression. They are even more violent, attacking in groups and using their tongues with greater precision. Improved jumping ability. They can cover greater distances with a single leap, making them more unpredictable in combat. The most impactful moment in Resident Evil 5 related to the liquors occurs in the Tricell research facility, where Chris Redfield and Shiva Alomar find a hallway full of Liquor Beta hibernating on the walls and ceiling. The atmosphere is tense, with almost no music. Only the sounds of the creatures breathing can be heard. Players must move slowly to avoid waking them, which is reminiscent of the mechanic in Resident Evil 2. If they make noise or accidentally shoot, the liquors wake up and attack en masse. This scene is one of the most terrifying moments in Resident Evil 5, evoking the feeling of danger and tension that the liquors have always represented in the series. Tricell not only improved the liquors, but also sold them as biological weapons to various buyers in the black market. This led to their use in conflict zones in Africa, where they became tools of war for terrorist groups and armed militias. This marks an important shift in the history of the saga. The liquors stopped being isolated creatures and became biological weapons controlled and sold by malicious organizations. This contributed to the expansion of bioterrorism in the Resident Evil world, as more and more organizations gained access to these creatures. In Resident Evil 6, the liquors return in a world completely immersed in the chaos of bioterrorism. The story shows how outbreaks of different viruses have affected various parts of the world, and the liquors are no exception. In Leon S. Kennedy's campaign, players encounter liquors in secret laboratories in China, where experiments with the C virus are taking place. Although these liquors are not completely different from those seen in Resident Evil 5, it is evident that they have continued to evolve due to the manipulation of the virus. In Leon's mission, players must traverse a laboratory infested with liquors that, just like in Resident Evil 5, may remain dormant until they detect noise. Both in Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6, the liquors are no longer just accidental mutations of the T-virus. They now represent a controlled and intentionally distributed threat by evil corporations and terrorists. Tricell improved the liquors and sold them as biological weapons. The black market allowed these monsters to reach different parts of the world. In Resident Evil 6, the liquors appear in China, confirming they have continued to be used in global bioterrorism. This transformation of the liquors into war weapons shows how the saga moved from localized horror to a global conflict, where biological weapons have become a massive threat. With the arrival of the remakes and new Resident Evil titles, the liquors were redesigned to fit modern graphic capabilities and the franchise's new realistic horror approach. In this chapter, we will explore their return in Resident Evil 2 Remake, their appearance in Resident Evil Resistance, and their impact on the expanded universe of the franchise. The remake took the design of the liquors to a completely new level, with more detailed textures and smoother animations. Instead of a flat red color, the liquors now have translucent skin with visible muscles, tendons, and veins. They move with unsettling fluidity, alternating between slowly walking and moving at high speed across walls and ceilings. Their screeches and growls are mixed with eerie breathing sounds, making each encounter chilling. Players first encounter the liquors while exploring the Raccoon City Police Department, specifically in the second-floor hallway. The first liquor appears shockingly as the player crosses a silent hallway and suddenly sees the creature slowly walking across the ceiling, intensifying the moment's tension. As in the original game, the lickers are blind, but now they react more realistically to sound. If the player walks slowly, the licker may not detect them, but if they run or shoot, the creature will attack with extreme aggression. The new AI for the licker makes it even more dangerous. If the player confronts it directly, the monster is brutally fast and difficult to dodge. In Resident Evil 2 Remake, the lickers are extremely resilient. Unlike the zombies, which can be eliminated with a couple of well-placed shots, the lickers require headshots with powerful ammunition, shotgun or grenade launcher. Absolute stealth, moving slowly to avoid detection. Strategic use of the environment, closing doors or taking advantage of corners to limit their movement. A fun fact is that in hardcore mode, the lickers are even more resilient and can kill the player in 2 hits if they're not careful. Although the lickers do not play a major role in Resident Evil 3 Remake, they can be found in some areas of Raccoon City, showing that the T-Virus continued to spread beyond the Raccoon City Police Department. However, in this game, the Hunter Beta and Gamma have more prominence as the main mutant creatures. In 2020, Capcom released Resident Evil Resistance, an asymmetrical multiplayer mode where one player controls a mastermind, a scientist from Umbrella, and the other 4 players try to survive as experiments of the corporation. In this game, the lickers were reintroduced as creatures controlled by the masterminds, meaning they were used as weapons in biological testing simulations. Now, the lickers are more aggressive, continuously attacking without the need for sound stimuli. They can jump longer distances, making them harder to avoid. They are summoned by the masterminds, implying that Umbrella was using them for combat trials. Now that we've covered their history and appearances in the games of the saga, I will talk about their appearance in the different Resident Evil movies, as well as their physical appearance, personality, and behavior, as well as their known abilities and weaknesses. In the 2002 film adaptation, the lickers are introduced as one of the main threats the protagonists face inside the Hive, an underground research facility owned by the Umbrella Corporation. These creatures represent one of the first and most dangerous bioorganic weapons, BOWs, developed by Umbrella. Unlike in the video games, where the lickers are the result of a secondary mutation of the T-Virus in infected humans, in the movie it is established that the lickers are created by directly injecting the T-Virus into living human tissue. This creation method suggests a more controlled and deliberate approach by Umbrella scientists to develop biological weapons. The Red Queen, the artificial intelligence controlling the Hive, describes the lickers as follows. One of the first experiments from the Hive, produced by injecting the T-Virus directly into living tissue. The results were unstable. Now that it has consumed fresh DNA, it will mutate, becoming a stronger and faster hunter. This explanation indicates that the lickers have the ability to evolve and become more powerful after consuming fresh DNA, making them even more lethal threats. The lickers in the film display several distinctive features. They lack skin, exposing their musculature and exposed brain. They move on all 4s, giving them a quadrupedal stance similar to that of an animal. Their tongues are long and sharp, capable of inflicting deadly wounds. Due to the lack of eyes, the lickers are blind and rely heavily on their keen sense of hearing to detect their prey. This makes them extremely sensitive to sound, which can be either an advantage or a disadvantage, depending on the situation. They are highly aggressive and attack any living being they detect. Their ability to climb walls and ceilings allows them to ambush their victims from unexpected angles. A notable feature of the lickers in the film is their ability to mutate after consuming fresh DNA. After feeding, they undergo a transformation that makes them stronger, faster, and more resilient. This mutation can also alter their appearance, making them even more intimidating and dangerous. The lickers play a crucial role in the plot of the movie. One of the most memorable moments is when a licker attacks the team on the train that connects the hive to the mansion on the surface. During this sequence, the creature shows its ferocity and resilience, causing significant casualties before being finally defeated. This confrontation underscores the threat posed by the BOWS developed by Umbrella and sets the tone for the challenges the protagonists will face in future installments of the film franchise. In Resident Evil Apocalypse, the Lickers return as a significant threat to the protagonists. The movie continues the story of Alice and other survivors as they attempt to escape Raccoon City, which has been infested by the T-virus. The Lickers as bioorganic weapons, BOWS, developed by the Umbrella Corporation, play a crucial role in the challenges the characters face. Just like in the first film, the Lickers in Apocalypse are the result of Umbrella's experiments with the T-virus. Although the movie does not delve into specific details about their creation, it is understood that they are advanced mutations resulting from direct exposure to the T-virus in human tissue. These creatures represent the dangers of genetic manipulation and the unchecked ambition of the corporation. The Lickers in this film retain many of the characteristics introduced in the first movie. Skinless bodies that expose their musculature and exposed brain. They move on all fours, giving them a quadrupedal stance. Their long and sharp tongues are used as lethal weapons. One of the most memorable scenes involving the Lickers occurs in a church where the protagonists, including Jill Valentine and Peyton Wells, seek refuge. While exploring the area, they are attacked by several Lickers hiding inside. The situation becomes desperate until Alice bursts into the church on a motorcycle, confronting the creatures and saving the group. This sequence highlights the threat posed by the Lickers and underscores Alice's combat abilities, establishing her role as the leader and protector of the group. Additionally, the scene emphasizes the omnipresence of Umbrella's creations and the constant dangers that haunt the survivors in Raccoon City. In Resident Evil 5, the Lickers, and particularly a larger variant known as the Uberlicker, play a significant role in the narrative and provide moments of high tension and action. During the rescue mission in Umbrella's underwater facilities, Alice and her team encounter the Uberlicker, a larger and more powerful version of the traditional Lickers. This creature stands out due to its colossal size and even more grotesque appearance, with exposed muscles and an extremely long, sharp tongue. Its presence adds a significant threat to Alice's team. As the rescue team, consisting of Alice, Leon S. Kennedy, Barry Burton, and Luther West, traverses the Moscow simulation, they are ambushed by a horde of zombies armed with Las Plagas. Amidst the chaos, the Uberlicker appears, attacking the team and demonstrating its formidable strength and resilience. Alice, showcasing her ingenuity and combat skills, uses a vehicle to ram the creature, giving the team a brief opportunity to escape. After the initial confrontation, the Uberlicker is not defeated and continues to stalk the team. In a later confrontation, the creature severely injures Barry and captures Becky, Alice's adoptive daughter, dragging her through a ventilation duct to its nest. This act intensifies Alice's urgency to rescue Becky and eliminate the threat. Determined to save Becky, Alice ventures into the Uberlicker's nest. There, she finds Becky trapped in an organic capsule. Using her skill and the tools at her disposal, Alice frees Becky and faces the Uberlicker in an intense battle. In the end, she manages to defeat the creature, ensuring Becky's safety and eliminating one of the biggest threats facing the team. In Resident Evil Damnation, the Lickers play a crucial role in the plot, being used as biological weapons by the Separatist faction in a fictional armed conflict in Eastern Europe. The story follows Leon S. Kennedy, who infiltrates the fictional country of Eastern Slav Republic to investigate the use of biological weapons in the civil conflict. During his mission, he discovers that Lickers have been unleashed in urban areas, causing chaos and destruction. These Lickers are controlled by special devices implanted in their brains, allowing the fighters to direct them at will. One of the innovations in Resident Evil, Damnation is the introduction of Las Plagas as a means of controlling the lickers. These parasitic entities allow humans to manipulate the lickers, directing them towards specific targets. This control is achieved by emitting sounds at particular frequencies, which the lickers are especially sensitive to. Ada Wong, one of the protagonists, explains that Las Plagas can emit sounds at specific frequencies, making it easier to control the lickers. Throughout the movie, Leon faces several lickers in different scenarios. In one notable scene, he finds himself trapped in a building with 2 lickers on the roof, creating an atmosphere of tension and danger. Using his cunning and combat skills, Leon manages to escape this situation. In the climax of the film, Leon and Ada face off against a tyrant, one of Umbrella's most powerful biological weapons. During this confrontation, the lickers, controlled by Las Plagas, attack the tyrant. However, the tyrant proves to be stronger and eliminates the lickers, allowing Leon and Ada to focus on defeating the main threat. In Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City, the lickers play a crucial role in creating an atmosphere of terror and tension. One of the standout scenes occurs when the lickers attack the protagonists at the Raccoon City police station, creating an atmosphere of fear and suspense. This scene is especially notable for the interaction between the characters and the lickers. In this adaptation, the lickers' appearance is more based on the video game series than the movie version. The lickers are iconic creatures in the Resident Evil franchise, both in the video games and the films. In both formats, the lickers maintain a humanoid structure with long, muscular limbs that allow them to move with agility and climb vertical surfaces. They lack eyes, featuring a deformed head with a long, flexible tongue, used to attack and detect their prey. Their exposed skin shows muscles and internal tissues, giving them a grotesque and terrifying appearance. In the video games, the lickers have dark red or brown skin, with a rough texture that highlights their monstrous nature. Their tongues are prominent and are shown in more detail during attack scenes. In the films, the lickers have darker, almost black skin, and their musculature is more pronounced, emphasizing their monstrous nature. Their tongues are more prominent and are shown in greater detail during attack scenes. The size of the lickers varies depending on the installment, but they are generally human-sized or slightly larger. Being blind, the lickers rely entirely on their sense of hearing. This makes them vulnerable to attacks that minimize noise, such as the use of silence weapons. Their brain is exposed and enlarged, making it a vulnerable point. Damage to this area can be fatal to the licker. Although they are more resistant than humans, lickers are not invulnerable. High-powered firearms can cause significant damage, especially if aimed at their exposed brain. And well, this would be everything we know so far about the mutations known as lickers. The first time I saw these creatures was in Resident Evil Apocalypse, and they scared me a lot, so much that I had trouble sleeping at night. But I was still fascinated by these monsters and truly wanted to know more about what they were and what they were called. But since I was a kid, I called them frog monsters, and for some reason, I ended up calling them warluckers. But let me know your opinion in the comments. Did you already know about the lickers? Do you think creatures like this could really exist in reality? And finally, if you ever encountered these mutations, what would you do to survive? Could you face them, or would you just try to hide and wish it were just a dream? Share your answers to these questions and your general opinion on the lickers from the Resident Evil universe. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you liked it, share it to support the channel, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of my new videos.